Hello. We hope many of you got our email with some information about how things are changing here. We know you have a lot of questions. We want to provide the best information we can. We still have a lot of questions, but we do have some answers, and we want to share what we do know with you now. We'll cover it in three categories briefly. One is our roles, the roles of the pastors here as Robbie is leaving. Second would be the search committee, that process, interim, pulpit committee, all that stuff. And third is our reopening plans. So on the first one, the session, the elders, have met and they have decided that it's in North Shore's best interest to not bring in an outside interim pastor. So you may know that that's a process that happens in other churches for a variety of reasons, and for a variety of reasons, partly because of our mutual trust and relationship. They just think it's wisest to not bring in another pastor at this point. But instead, we'll be dividing Robbie's pastoral responsibilities among us, and we'll do so even as we move forward into a pastoral search process. So we'd love to tell you what responsibilities we're going to be taking on and continuing.
As we do this, remember, you can contact any of us about anything. We're all your pastors.
Absolutely.
We care about every area of the church, and we're in constant communication with one another. You're not going to offend us if you don't know the order of things. Sometimes we don't know the order of things. But our sphere of responsibility is based on what we've been doing individually and our own experience at other churches. And so I'm going to be taking on the Sunday morning roles of coordinating with our worship team, arranging liturgy, working on our preaching schedule, and figuring out what we're preaching. We also are going to continue to use our secret algorithm that divvies up the preaching responsibilities between the three of us, so that you'll get to hear from all of us at different points, and we'll share that burden more or less equally. Also taking on the prayer meeting that Robbie led and our prayer communication. I've been doing a lot of adult ministries here at North Shore and world missions, and so we'll just provide oversight and coordination among some of those things, like women's ministry, men's ministry, and those sorts of things. Heather Dirksey, Dave Maisner, Liz Edrington, all the good work that they do. I'll have to take the credit for that.
Right, and similar to Jason, the three people that I'm adding to my plate, just as far as to oversee and to help, will be Diane Zeglin, Lainey Staten, and Rob Wolf. So basically nursery to youth. They'll report to me, but that really is probably too strong of language. They're all three very competent and good at their jobs. I'm here to be an advocate, to be a help and support where I can. We have full confidence in them, and I'll retain my work with the deacons, just being that pastoral liaison, sometimes between the deacons and the session, or helping our deacons plug into good work there, and overseeing our local missions, local ministries in the city, trying to get our people to serve nonprofits and their neighbors, wherever the Lord might put them. Obviously, it's a weird time for many of those ministries as well, but we're hoping for a sooner return to normal.
Yeah, and I'll be taking over staff oversight a little more broadly. A lot of what I'm going to be taking on was things I was already starting to take on with Robbie, kind of as with my executive pastor title, just working with the personnel and finance committees. Those are committees that keep our staff and our budget healthy in lots of ways that are hard to describe. And also in the same way that John will be working with the deacons, I'll be working with the elders to create agendas and keep things on pace and stuff like that. I just want to interject here a second and say that these are all responsibilities that we want to take on. They feel like natural extensions of what we've been doing, and we met together and mutually agreed on these without any desire to steal something from somebody else.
There was no fighting.
No
really.
fighting.
Right.
No fighting at all, which was good.
Then the next day, we met with Robbie, and he laid out his vision for how we would work together as a team, and it was about 98% the same.
About 98.
We
Very
feel
affirming.
pretty comfortable with where we're at.
Yeah.
It's a huge responsibility. We're going to need your prayers and support.
Absolutely. There is going to continue to be a search committee formed. A pulpit committee is what it's technically called. So the search for the next senior pastor does continue even as we do take on these responsibilities. And that's something that has to happen within our polity, regardless of who is chosen to be on that pulpit committee. And Jason, you want to say something about how that's formed?
Sure. Well, we're Presbyterian, and that means that even though North Shore has a very laid-back and casual feel at times, there are very helpful instructions that we have that we're supposed to follow, and we'll get in trouble if we don't follow them. There is a little bit of latitude on some of the details of how these things get worked out, depending on church size and depending on the wisdom that the session has. And so you'll be hearing from the session on specifics about how many members are going to be on that pulpit committee, for example, and how many of those you'll need to vote on and consider. Obviously, we can't vote as a congregation until we can all meet together, if not in this building, at least on the grounds of North Shore. We may be able to spread out and vote. We're not sure what that's going to look like yet, but
working on it.
We're working on it. We're leaning towards the moment where we can have those sorts of congregational meetings to move this thing forward.
And after that pulpit committee is formed, they'll do their due diligence, as long as that might take, to figure out who they would like to recommend to become the next senior pastor. When they do that, they'll bring forth that recommendation, and the congregation will vote on that, to either accept that recommendation or to deny it. And if they do deny it, then it'll start over. But that is what they're entrusted to do, to bring forth one candidate to the congregation to vote to be the next senior pastor.
Pastors, session members can't unduly influence that committee. We can't put pressure on them to make certain decisions. The session can give them guidance on certain things that they think that the church needs or doesn't need. They can give them that instruction ahead of time, but no one is allowed to tamper with that committee.
Yeah, and if you're wondering as a member, what is my part in this, you will vote on the members of that pulpit committee, and when the pulpit committee brings a candidate, you will vote on the next senior pastor, so you'll be involved in those two ways. Just for fun, y'all want to do a little raffle, little poll on how long it's going to take?
We have no idea.
Yeah, we don't know. It can take 6 months, 2 years, 10 years. You know, it can go on a long time. In the meantime, among the three of us and taking advice from lots of other people, we are making some plans to meet again in person. Meanwhile, we're going to continue to meet online. Thank you so much for the love and support you've given us, for the efforts we've made to making that online worship experience as good as we can, given the personnel and equipment that we have. We are going to be trying to continue to improve that, and even when we do meet in person, we will continue to live stream for those that need us to do so. And so we're actually looking to hire some AV, IT, tech, computer geek sort of help. So if you know somebody that might be good at that, check the email that we sent, and there will be a link there to apply for that position and give me some help, which I would greatly appreciate.
We're carefully planning how to get back together. This is something that we miss
So
dearly, and it's been very challenging for us in all kinds of ways to have to go through this season. Finished 2 months of this week, and looking forward. We're not quite ready to get back because we have a lot of planning to execute. We are constantly in contact with other churches and pastors in our presbytery, around our state, and even around the world, getting advice from them on what they've done, what's worked and what hasn't worked. John got a text from someone right before this. We all got an email from a member right before that, so that's a pretty standard day for us. Yeah. Chris and I have been on statewide and presbytery-wide Zoom meetings in large discussions, and I've been really pleased with the amount of grace that church leaders have given one another about making these difficult decisions.
Yeah.
So we're looking to larger churches in our presbytery and in the state to sort of set the tone for what might be the best path forward. We're also working with members in our congregation who have experience in the medical fields necessary to make wise and good decisions. So we're getting all kinds of inputs. Many of you have written with suggestions, and we thank you for those. We continue to invite those. We're doing everything we can to meet as quickly as we can, and we'll be in further communication about those details when the time comes. We do want to prepare ourselves. It's not going to look like what you remember.
Yeah.
And that's a very grievous thing for all of us. But we are striving to return to normalcy, or at least what part of normalcy we can return to.
That's right.
And you can imagine with everything that Jason and Chris just acknowledged, the amount of opinions that are being waded through, the amount of information, trying to figure out what's wisest and best for us. We need your prayer. We need your prayers to think through this clearly, to go forward with the Lord's will, to be back together safely as soon as possible. So please pray for us. We really do mean that. It's a lot to juggle and to navigate through, and so your prayers really are appreciated. Please do so. We love y'all and miss y'all.
And we hope to see your faces again soon, even if you're covered in a mask. The Lord be with you until we do.
Amen.